Hey everybody, welcome back to the Morse Code Podcast. On today's episode, I had the absolute pleasure of speaking with Rabbi Daniel Bogard of the Central Reform Congregation. Rabbi Bogard is also the co-founder of Camp Indigo Point, a summer camp for genderqueer kids that's located just across the river in Illinois. Rabbi Bogard is one of the state's most fierce and tireless advocates for trans rights, including those of his trans son. I love this conversation. It got real deep, real fast. So if you're interested in anything from politics to existential theology, you're going to enjoy Rabbi Bogard. Well, Rabbi Bogard, thank you so much for taking the time. I was thinking about this. We met almost 2 years ago at a Democratic Party event.
Is that right?
And I knew that I wanted to come up and talk to you, and I sort of interrupted a conversation you were having with Elad. And you know, since then, we've had a delightful, getting to know each other. It's been great.
But we still haven't jammed. That's what we keep talking about doing.
Yeah. Well, I was going to comment that with everything you have going on, it's almost like parting the Red Sea to find time.
We need little rim shot sounds.
Yeah, a little rim shot.
Yeah.
No, but so Rabbi, camp director of Indigo Point, as of today, podcast producer, because I am very grateful that you've been.
There you go. Yeah.
I'm really hoping to talk a little bit about your life and your role in political and cultural circles, and also, and maybe this will end up being a two-parter because there's a lot to cover. I'd really like to get into faith and spirituality and how it, informs and directs your life. So that's a lot to cover. But can you just start out giving us the backstory, where you grew up and how you got here, et cetera?
Yeah. I grew up here in St. Louis. Huh? I'm a Parkway North grad, and actually grew up in the house that I live in now.
Oh, wow.
Which was also the house that my dad grew up in, that my grandpa built, that my kids are living in now.
That's amazing.
Yeah, really incredible.
Yeah.
And I grew up at the synagogue Central Reform Congregation that I work at today.
Uh-huh.
So 8 years ago when we came back to St. Louis, it was really a holistic homecoming that happened.
Yeah. So you had a little Rumspringa.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So gosh, let's see. I went to McAllister College in Minnesota, where I was a religious studies major, looking at New Testament and Tibetan Buddhism.
Huh.
So not a lot that I do anymore.
Yeah.
Including I lived for 6 months with the Tibetan refugee community in North India.
Wow.
And through a crazy series of events, my parents ended up adopting my host sister.
Wow.
Who has become my sister.
Really?
Yeah, actually, she was in town until yesterday because my mom was given an award, so she came in for that.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah. So I did that. I lived on a kibbutz in Israel for a little bit, a intentional socialist commune.
Uh-huh.
I taught at Live for Life in downtown St. Louis. Right across from Soulard. Uh-huh. And then I went off to rabbinical school.
Wow.
I met my wife Karen there, who was also a rabbinical student in Jerusalem, and then spent 4 years working and living and studying in Cincinnati for the last chunk of rabbinical school.
Great.
Which, as we say, is 5 years, but it feels longer.
Yeah.
So
That's
then
great.
we had 5 great years in Peoria, Illinois, in the Jewish community there, where all our kids were born.
Uh-huh.
2 years discovering the job we didn't want to have in Cincinnati, Ohio.
Uh-huh.
And then we've been back here in St. Louis at Central Reform for, this is our 8th year.
Uh-huh. And how does Karen feel about St. Louis?
She really has come to love St. Louis.
Yeah?
Yeah, she's from Memphis.
Okay.
So there's a little bit of that Mississippi River connection, I-55. Yeah.
Probably used to a relatively small Jewish community among a
the St. Louis, at least amongst Jewish communities, is a pretty good-sized Jewish population.
Yeah. Do we know why?
So the first Jews who came to the United States, actually the first Jews who came, there were about 5,000 of us, dark-skinned Sephardi Jews fleeing the Spanish Inquisition in the 1400s and got on boats anywhere we could go, including to the Western Hemisphere. So about 5,000 of us came over then.
Wow.
But about 50,000 Jews fled from Germany over the course of the early 1800s, and they ended up settling in the German cities.
Oh, makes sense.
The early Jewish communities weren't New York and Boston, and it was the German cities. It was St. Louis and Cincinnati and Peoria and Milwaukee and these sorts of places. So there was already a vibrant Reform Jewish community here.
Wow.
And then between about 1880 to 1924, somewhere between 2 to 2.5 million Jews were ethnically cleansed from Eastern Europe and made their way to the United States. And many of them obviously end up in places like New York, but lots of them just went to existing vibrant Jewish communities like St. Louis.
I'm also curious, I wasn't expecting to talk about this, but something I've always wondered about, you talked about studying Buddhism and being in Tibet. Is there a connection between Judaism and Buddhism? Is there a reason why it seems like...
Yeah. We call them Jew-Boos. Or Boo-Jews, I guess, depending on where you prioritize it. No, what I would say is that Jewish community is not fundamentally theological. If you don't believe in God, you're generally not considered a Christian. If you don't believe in God, you're generally not considered a Muslim. If you don't believe in God, you are like something like half of all American Jews. Because fundamentally we are a people, we are a tribe, more than anything else. So when you look at Jews, many of us end up exploring theological traditions outside of Judaism, the religion of the Jewish people. And in particular, Buddhism isn't challenging to Jewish identity in the way that, for instance, Christianity is.
Right.
And Christianity, I think, truthfully, is challenging to Jewish identity not for theological reasons, but for sociological reasons. Because for most of the last 1,500 years, the people coming to murder us came with a cross and a sword.
Interesting, you were talking about being in theological school and studying the New Testament. I wonder what that is like. We jumped right into that part of it.
I thought we were going to say right in.
When we get together, we always talk politics.
But so I studied early Christianity in undergrad, not in rabbinical school. And what's so interesting about early Christianity is it's Jews. The early Jesus movement is a Jewish theological movement. It's actually a Jewish political revolutionary movement more than anything else. That's what Messianism was at the time. And we tend to think of things like Christian scriptures as being Christian scriptures. But the reality is the vast majority of them are theological writings by Jews, for Jews, about Jews within a Jewish worldview. And in that sense, they are our texts as much as they belong to anyone else.
Something I've noticed that in our New Testament, a lot of you're talking about the early Christian texts and discussions, in order to provide legitimacy for what the early Christians were doing, Jesus and his apostles and all that stuff, they go through the Torah and talk, share examples of prophecy and talk, they're really trying to say, look, this is true to what I think at the time was a deeper Jewish tradition, probably. And if you zoom out even just a little bit, what you discover is that there are all sorts of messianic movements that look a lot like the Jesus movement that happened during this time. John the Baptist really should be Yoni the Mikvah man. Mikvah's Jewish version of baptism, because this is a guy who was a Jewish messianic religious revivalist. And Messianism, of course, during this time meant someone who was going to restore the political order to the way that it always should have been. Interesting.
It's why Jesus is crucified. Because to call yourself a Messiah was to say, I'm going to overthrow the Romans.
Wow.
Turns out the Romans don't like that so much. But we have all sorts of other figures, Bar Kokhba, Rabbi Akiva, Honi the circle drawer, all sorts of other people who in many ways look like the Jesus movement. Until, of course, you get someone like Paul, who takes the Jesus movement and says, you can be a part of Israel, the Jewish people, without being a part of the Jewish people. We actually think somewhere around 10 to 15% of the entire empire was Jewish, Roman Empire, and about 10 to 15% of the empire were non-Jews who followed the Jewish God.
Huh.
But what's interesting is many of them didn't convert, because to convert to Judaism at that time, particularly for men, meant adult circumcision in an era where some wine was your strongest painkiller.
Right.
So not very popular to do that, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
And so when you look at things like Paul talking about being circumcised of heart, we see that entirely in spiritual terms today in Christian communities.
Yeah.
But if you look at it in its historical context, that's a political statement. That's a polemic saying, no, you can be a part of this and be circumcised of heart. Leave your privates alone.
Yeah. We can come back to the leave your privates alone, because I think we have a lot to discuss.
Yeah, exactly. Good key into trans kids, actually, right there.
Yeah. Maybe we should go there. Why are we talking about trans kids? Tell me the rest of the story.
So Central Reformed Congregation, where I work, has always been a home for social justice and has seen Jews as being obligated to bring repair to the world. That's really the central Jewish story, the central Jewish myth, is this tale that the world was created unfinished, and humans were created to finish the work of making the world the way it should always be. We call this tikkun olam, the repair of the world. So in Jewish tellings, we're not sent to this earth to figure out whether our souls go to heaven or hell. This is not God's quality control for Jews. Instead, we are sent here as God's subcontractors to finish the work of creation. So we are obligated by the brokenness, because that's why we were made. So this community has always taken it very seriously. And so from the first moments that I was here, I missed my first board meeting because I was being arrested at a protest for ICE. And I started going down to Jeff City to testify early on about abortion, about gun safety, about issues like this. But pretty quickly it became clear that we had a kid who was genderqueer. And what has happened across red states, across this country, is there is a demonization and a vilification of trans kids and trans adults that is so cynical. And we saw it happening in Missouri starting in 2018, 2019. So I started going down again and again and again. And actually the first time I ever said out loud that I have a trans kid was in testimony to the General Laws Committee of the Missouri Assembly. Before I said it to his grandparents, before my wife and I had said it out loud to each other, that was the first group that I said it to. Because what you learn pretty quickly when you love a trans kid and you live in a red state is that you will need to protect them from your government. So that became, for years I was going down a dozen times over and over and over again. We call it Pharaoh's Palace in my household. And it's interesting, people who haven't spent time in Jeff City hear that and sometimes bristle a little bit. No, there's good people there. If you spend time in Jeff City, it's Pharaoh's Palace.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned the cynicism, and you told me a story about, I know that there's a bunch of these stories, but when we met, we were talking, and I was at the time running for elected office to replace Dean Plocker, who was Speaker of the Missouri House.
And I think, by the way, you ran the best election of any candidate for State House that I saw this year.
Well, thank you. Thanks.
The result didn't go how I was hoping. But
depends on how you quantify the best, but
probably better for your mental health that you lost, though.
Yeah, I've thought about that a lot since then.
The number of state legislators, particularly rookies, who I get calls from, who are just personally, mentally, spiritually struggling, is awful.
You and I have had conversations about whether I'll run again and whether I should, and et cetera. And I very much enjoy the fight. I very much enjoy the campaign. But you shouldn't apply for a job that you don't want.
And I've thought a lot since Election Day, and some good friends who I made along the way who did get elected and went off to Jefferson City to fight the good fight. I watched them and I thought, am I envious of them? Do I wish I was in their shoes? Is this something
It's an awful job.
It's an awful job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Particularly when you have no power, when you're a super minority.
Yeah. And I hate to say that because I do, we need change. And the only way that we're going to, affect change is to get as many good, well-meaning, well-intentioned fighters in there as possible.
Yep.
You want to open up the tent and, encourage people to jump in.
Yep.
So I don't want to turn cynical, but I also am a parent of 4 kids, and the parent oftentimes kind of dictates or has a large influence on the mental state of the household, But okay, so returning to household.
Yeah.
You are a father of 3.
Yep.
And you mentioned having a trans kid.
Yep.
And I get the feeling, although I don't know, that your child was pretty young when they made this revelation. Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, really, from the first moments that he could describe anything about what he wanted in life, he was asking for boy stuff. Mm-hmm. He's a twin, and his twin always wanted, unicorns and butterflies, and her room still kind of looks like a unicorn vomited all over it. Yeah. Is how I describe it. And he was grabbing monster trucks and stealing his older brother's clothes. And then he started begging for a short boy's haircut. And he had this gorgeous long hair. And we cut his hair to here. In retrospect, we were sort of processing our own internalized transphobia. But we cut his hair to here, and he said, no, I want a short boy. So then we cut it to here. No, I want a short. And the moment we gave him that short boy's haircut, he looked at us and he said, I'm a boy.
Wow.
And I can't tell you how unimpactful our kid being trans has been in our lives. It's just not a big deal.
That's great.
It genuinely is one of the least interesting things about him. He's a cool kid. In fact, he's home right now playing with his 3D printer that he saved up money to buy and engineering things.
Yeah, that's great.
And it would be entirely uneventful if it weren't for the fact that our government is at war with families like my family.
Yeah.
And look, I say this with the fullness of history as a rabbi. I believe that for trans people, trans kids in particular, and families of trans kids, this is almost exactly what it was like in the early 1930s in Germany for Jews.
Wow.
That it works exactly the same way. That this is how fascism operates. This is how political parties gain and hold power by convincing people to be disgusted and fearful of a small minority.
Yeah.
And it's also really disgusting. Independent of that, it's really disgusting when you start realizing how obsessed these Republicans are with what the genitals of people look like.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's really perverted. These people
passing laws to police it.
Yeah. Even as they sit there and call people like me groomers, these people are weirdos and perverts who are obsessed with knowing what everyone's genitals look like, which is gross.
Yes. Yeah. I was speaking on the topic one time at an event, and it sounds so trite, but I'm a straight, white, cis male, and I look back on puberty, and it's not all about puberty, but I look back on my own personal physical and identity development, and I think about times when I felt, out of place in my own body, and when I felt like the person everybody thinks I am is not who I am. That everyone goes through that intense period.
Oh, yeah.
All these people who are, demonizing the people who have it the hardest. We can all identify at the very least with the feeling of like, who am I? What am I? I'm crawling out of my skin, and to imagine being in those shoes, the shoes of a trans kid, and like what they must be discovering and realizing and all of that.
But it turns out it's actually not such a big deal.
Maybe not.
Outside of what politics does to it, it turns out that this is just another way of being human. And this is one of the gifts of being a rabbi and being a part of this long tradition, is we've got Jewish stories from 1,000 years ago about trans people. The rabbis of the Talmud, 1,800 years ago, longer than that, contemporaries of Jesus, describe 6, 7, 8 different genders when they look out at the world. It turns out one of my very favorite stories. So in the 1930s, during what came to be called the Nazi Olympics, there was this phenomenon where athletes were going off and competing in the women's games and coming back as men. And it caused this huge uproar in the press. It was all over the world. It was in American newspapers. Of course, we don't know about this because when you don't teach the history of queer people, then it seems like being queer is new in every generation. But so this is happening in the 1930s, and an old Jewish refugee living in Brooklyn writes into a Yiddish language newspaper and says, you crazy people, in the 1930s, you crazy people who think this trans thing is new, let me tell you the story of Beryl Bela. And he goes on to tell the story of a trans man in the 1800s in his shtetl in what would now be called Ukraine, who not only transitioned, but was embraced by the community, was taught to lead the prayers. This is at a time when only men would be counted in a prayer quorum, and he was leading the prayers, who's married off to Rachel with the black hair, not to be confused with Rachel with the red hair. Wanted to make sure you got that right in the letter.
Okay, got it.
And he ends by saying, you know, and he always had the name of a good upstanding Jew in our shtetl. Right, this is the 1930s, this is 100 years ago, talking about trans folk being not new then, and then talking about the 1880s because people in the 1930s thought it was new. There have always been trans people. There have always been queer people. It is just another amazing way of being a human being. But unfortunately, Republicans have realized that they can cynically get people to be disgusted by my child in order to win elections. And I say it's cynical because, I mean, let's talk about the man you ran to replace, Dean Plocker. May his name be blotted out. Dean Plocker was a classic business Republican. And you'd think he'd be responsive to the business community. And for years, starting in 2018, 2019, we were going down, we were meeting with these people, we were bringing our kids, they got to know our kids, they saw our kids growing up, they heard their stories, they saw them as real people. And you know, they'd tell us in their offices, they'd say, I know these laws are bad. I know that these aren't good, but they're good for us in terms of winning elections. So what we'll do is, yes, we'll vote yes on them, but we'll make sure they don't come up till so late in the session that they don't actually pass. Okay. Then the year that these all passed, I think it was 23, 22, 23, in Missouri, we knew it was going to go bad because they stopped looking us in the eye. I arranged a meeting with some business leaders and a business organization here in St. Louis with Dean Plocker, his donors, his base, his people. Worked hard to get this meeting to talk to him about it because we were scared. We knew it was going to pass. It sure was looking that way. And with these lobbyists from the business community, he blew us off. He walked right past us. He refused to meet with us during the time when we went down just for the purpose of that meeting. And finally, the business lobbyist grabs him by the shoulder and says, you know, Speaker Plocker, we're supposed to have a meeting with you. And he goes, I'll give you 3 minutes. What do you want? Wouldn't look us in the eyes. And, you know, I wanted to talk about the criminalization bills and the gender affirming care bills. But the business leaders wanted to talk about the sports bans. The sports bans, it turns out, are bad for business. They're really bad for Missouri. It's worth noting, by the way, as long as we're talking about sports bills, that they're not real. Right? There are more people who died in the tornado in St. Louis than there are the total number of trans athletes who are competing in the NCAA, which has 500,000 athletes. Right? This is not a real issue. It's entirely fabricated. But so they start talking to him, and they start saying something like, you know, we're going to have to find, it's going to cost Missouri $70 million, or however much money they said. It was something like that. And he looked back at them, and he said, well, guess you're going to have to find that money elsewhere, and walked away. This was his constituent base. These were his donors. This was the business community. And that's when I knew. That's when I knew that it was over. It was over. The the old Republican Party was gone,
Yeah.
and it has been replaced by fascists.
Yeah. I'm interested what transition or developmental period this has been for you in your career and in your dedication to your faith and in the role the faith has played for you personally, and the way I imagine when you decided to go to rabbinical school and be a rabbi, you didn't expect to be a warrior for trans rights. You expected to lead a congregation, right? And what's that like for you?
Yeah. Gosh, I feel like we're living at a moment when all the myths that we built our lives around have collapsed.
Yeah. Wow.
Ezra Klein uses the language of, the end of one political era and the beginning of a new one, but I think I mean the same thing by it. The myth that I had about America, that somehow we were on the way towards an ever more perfect union. The faith that I had in 2008 with the election of Barack Obama has been shattered. Mm-hmm. I mean, shattered. I think we've lost democracy at this point. I don't think it's recoverable, at least within my lifetime. Systematically, I mean, it's been rigged to that extent, and it's continuing to be rigged. The other big myth that I grew up on was Israel. And this story that said that the experience of powerlessness and vulnerability and victimization that Jews have had over 2,500 years would make us more moral when we actually had power. Mm-hmm. And that clearly is not the case. Amongst all the tragedies of Gaza, this is one of them, that it is very clear that Jews are no more moral when we have power than anyone else. Which, of course, we should have known this, right? Trauma doesn't make anyone anything other than traumatized. It doesn't give us moral clarity. It just makes us traumatized. Which I think is a lesson for progressives to learn, too. We sometimes act like trauma and oppression give us a moral truth. It's funny, I'm a big Trekkie, Star Trek guy. And in some funny but real ways, the biggest myth that I have had collapse is that I had a version of my story where I was helping to build that Star Trek future. The Star Trek is a progressive utopian fantasy, right? And I don't believe that anymore. I don't believe that humanity will overcome its most significant problems. And it has been a profound collapse of faith and of hope that I have experienced. Mm-hmm. And I'm still sitting in that. And so I think I'm a really good rabbi to people who are looking for someone to sit with them in that. Uh-huh. And I feel like for a lot of people who what they want out of their clergy is hope, I don't have it in me to give. And I wish I did, and I wish I had some way of channeling it. But I just don't. My rabbi growing up, Susan Talvey, who founded this community, always says, in the belief that the good in us will eventually win. Mm-hmm. I don't believe that anymore.
Wow.
Now, the good part about being a Jew is we've got thousands of years of other Jews who felt this same way.
Sure.
I have all sorts of texts and all sorts of teachers in these texts that I can sit with, and people who have experienced this and also then gotten up and done the laundry.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a challenge every day. And it's this odd dichotomy because I live, in a beautiful home that my grandpa built and with material comfort and with, and I think about needing to flee every day.
Yeah.
And I do think it's going to get a lot darker than it is right now. I'm not quite as despondent as I was when I was spending every day or once a week in Jeff City.
That'll make you despondent.
That'll
right?
do it. But I also feel like I have seen things there that are coming that people who haven't experienced that don't realize. Folks who think that there's a fever that will break of Trumpism have not spent time in Jeff City, have not seen how full the backbenches are with the next generation of this movement.
Interesting. I've been holding on real tight to that hope and that the narrative that there is a fever that will break, and I don't necessarily think it goes out with Trump, but it's interesting to hear you talk in the collective about Israel, and it's interesting to hear you talk about humanity as opposed to about power structures or existing political, delineations. Is that true? Like, my sense of things is that Bibi is not popular in Israel. The Jews I know are not fans of his or of what's happening in Gaza.
Yeah.
We of course, I think, tend to surround ourselves with people who can speak the same language we speak. So, you're in touch with a lot of people who are holding out hope and holding up a flame for some sort of sense of justice.
Yeah.
Tell me more about that. You don't
Look,
think it will overcome.
Bibi's not popular, but it turns out that a lot of the worst of Bibi's policies are popular. A two-state solution hasn't been a part of Israeli politics for 20 years, 15 years. And it's not going to be. A two-state solution isn't possible anymore. The settlements and the reality of the settlement enterprise within the center of Israeli politics makes that impossible. Similarly, I think the systems and the incentive structures of American governance and the Constitution and our constitutional order at this point are so misaligned and corrupted that it's going to get a lot worse before we have an opportunity to make it better. But I guess if I was saying it writ large, the way I would say it is that I do not in any way believe that the moral arc of the universe is long, but it bends towards justice.
Wow.
I believe the moral arc of the universe bends in whatever direction we bend it, and that it can bend towards terrible directions and it can bend in progressive directions, but it's about how we as humans bend it. And unfortunately, we are in a moment where the levers of power are controlled by people who are bending it in an awful direction.
Yeah.
We were bending it in the right direction for a while. If you talked to me in 2020, 2021, 22, I really believed we were going to win when it came to trans kids. Not today, not tomorrow, but 5 years from now, whatever it was. We were going to keep defeating these bills. I don't believe that anymore.
Yeah.
I don't believe we're going to win societally or structurally. And so instead I have moved so much of my work to trying to protect vulnerable human beings instead of trying to build these great future projects of liberal democracy, of Star Trek.
Yeah.
That were core to my life before this. And that's, in many ways what Indigo Point is about, which is the camp for transgender, expansive, and LGBTQ youth that I helped to start. I'm, by the way, not the director of it. I'm one of the founders.
Co-founder.
And sort of serve as the equivalent of the president of the board.
Got it.
Meaning I helped to raise scholarship dollars for it. Shira Berkowitz, a lobbyist, or not a lobbyist, but an activist with Promo, is the director of camp. But
is it located in Missouri?
It is not. No, we couldn't.
That's a good idea.
We couldn't be in a red state. We're across the river in Illinois. But we started this camp as a place for queer kids to just for a moment be surrounded by other people like them. We know that something like 2/3 of all trans kids will think about or attempt suicide by the time they're 25.
Wow.
And this is the most depressing statistic I know. That what reduces that to almost the same level as non-trans kids is a single supportive, loving adult.
Wow.
And that's so depressing because think about how many kids that means don't have a single supportive, loving adult in their lives. So we thought, okay, if a single adult does that, what would giving kids an experience for, now we're at 2-week camp, for 2 weeks where every kid in their cabin is like them. And they're heroes who introduce them to new music and the popular shows and all that are 20-something counselors like them. And where the administrator is a queer adult who shows them what it means to be a successful, thriving queer person as a 40-year-old. Where the nurse is, I don't know why this seems to be like what always happens, a 70-year-old chain-smoking lesbian. And I really think it will probably end up being the most impactful, most important thing I've ever done in my life. We get these emails from parents who tell us that their kids are alive because they had camp.
Wow.
And this is just campfires and arts and crafts and archery and parents who say that they sent us a child who lived in black and white, who had no friends, who sat alone in their room. And we sent them back a kid who not only has camp friends that they stay in contact with, but who showed up at school and start making friends at school and who join extracurricular activities all of a sudden. And I know deep in my kishkas that we are saving lives with this camp. It's pretty remarkable.
How many campers do you have, and do they come from all over? And
so we sell out camp. We're at a facility that can take about 150 kids. We had to go out there and count it because we sell it out. So we get about 150 kids. We are 2nd through 10th grades. Actually, right now, while we are recording this, we have a brand new week-long Colorado adventure camp for trans kids.
Cool.
It's happening. High schoolers. But we have in every unit, so elementary, middle, and high school, we have 3 bunking options. There's a boys' cabin, a girls' cabin, and an all-gender cabin. And kids pick whatever cabin they identify as and what makes sense to them. And we get kids from about 33 different states.
Wow.
We have kids who get on planes from Alaska to come to our rural Illinois camp. And so our 2 big values, the first is that everyone working there needs to be queer themselves. And we like 99%, which we'll take. It's why I don't work there. And the other value is that the kid who can afford camp the least is probably the kid who needs camp the most. So we have a policy where whatever a kid wants to pay or can pay, whatever their family can pay, we will take them. And so we have kids who pay $20, their families, and then we buy them a plane ticket to fly out here from Arizona. And we cover the cost of camp. And that's sort of been my role, is I just have guaranteed that we will make that happen somehow. And every year we somehow make that happen. It takes about $130,000 of scholarship and subsidy. That covers some of the security costs too, to make CAP happen, and it does.
That's amazing. That is incredible.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's the best thing I've ever been a part of.
Are the council? I just got back. I don't know if you know this, but I was in Michigan at my kids' summer camp.
Hey, we just got back from summer camp too.
Did you really?
Yeah.
I was the laundry dad, so I was spending 7 hours a day folding laundry. But yeah, so you're doing all the kind of archetypal camp activities, building fires, and
this is regular summer camp.
I mean,
regular sleepaway camp. Exactly.
That's great.
Yeah, kids wake up in their tent or their yurts every morning with their counselors and the other kids, and they go to flagpole where we raise the progress flag and sing a queer anthem. But then they have cabin activities where they go to arts and crafts or archery or whatever it is, and they get things where they get to pick, and then evening activities, and
that's awesome.
Everyone's tired, and the high schoolers
dirty.
come back with stories of their first kiss, and
that's great.
It's all the things that happen at camp. It's incredible.
That is incredible. You should be very proud.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Is Camp Indigo Point the only queer camp?
It is not. There were a few other, really a small handful of other camps when we started. We were one of the only ones at that time that were committed to the idea of every staff member needs to be queer themselves. But when we started, it was distinctive enough in 2021 that Good Morning America showed up, and the New York Times sent a photojournalist, and the Washington Post has run like 3 stories on us. Andy, we were saying no to national news sources.
Yeah.
And today we're not that interesting. Because there's dozens and dozens of camps like ours that have spread out.
Yeah.
Which is really amazing to see.
Yeah.
And we still sell out without trying. We don't
150 kids, is that what you said?
We don't do recruitment.
Yeah.
We really don't.
Just 5 years.
Yeah. We've sold out every year.
Really?
Yeah, without trying. I mean, our first year we were at a smaller campsite. We could only have 97 kids there. We had to go count. And we did that because I got on Canva and made like a goofy little flyer that I shared on my Facebook.
Wow.
Actually, parents are often so desperate to get their kids in because they understand what this will mean for them. That unfortunately, they don't always tell us about the needs of their campers. So our first year, we had a kid show up in a wheelchair. With no warning to us.
Is something they should have mentioned.
Yes. And you know what? That kid went on to become one of the like all-stars of camp and came back until he aged out.
That's so cool.
Cool kid.
Yeah.
Cool kid. But yes, so there are unique challenges that come along with this, including mental health challenges. We have 4 or 5 different mental health experts that we have on site for camp.
So that's a significant amount of staff you've got on staff.
Yeah. I want to say we have 65-ish staff members for 150 campers.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. You really scaled up very fast. Well, it sounds like you didn't even. It sounds like you started big.
It was wild. We really thought we would have 20 kids that first year. Like we were hoping to have 20 kids.
Right.
And then we had a wait list.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
You mentioned in passing. You mentioned security. How has the reception been? Has that been an issue at all?
So, fortunately, unfortunately, I'm not sure what the word is. All of our founders come from the Jewish community of St. Louis. We're not a Jewish camp. It's one of the most commonly asked questions people assume. But we are not a Jewish camp. We're not religious at all. But there is a Jewish security consultant in town that works with all the Jewish organizations who has taken on consulting with us for free. God bless him.
Yeah.
Baptist guy. Love him so much. And so he's arranged security for us every year. We spend about $25,000 for 2 weeks of security. Wow. We have armed security there 24/7, multiple people. And we have other things. We have this balance because we need to raise the scholarship money, and raising money for scholarships means we got to have press. We got to get the word out there. And the more the word is out there, the more likely we are to be, God forbid, targeted.
Yeah.
So we figured out over the years how we do this. We go radio silent basically the 2 or 3 months before camp. And then once camp's over, we can blast it out there, and then we go quiet again.
After Trump was elected the first time.
Yep.
And there was a large freak out among, say, center left people. This is not who we are movement. And I remember several of my, and it was a publicly, communicated backlash,
sure.
but several of my personal black friends would say, that's not who you thought you were.
Yeah, but it turns out this is who we've been.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it just hits home as you talk about, coming from a Jewish community, understanding and living in a space of being targeted. And I was just connecting that back to thinking about, you were talking about raising your trans son and what that will mean, what that does mean for you now, and what that will mean for you as a family in the future. And you always think about leaving. And that feels to me like, oh my God, we're in a new space now. We need to think about all this stuff. But maybe that's not how it feels to you.
There is a story in the Torah, in the Hebrew Bible, about a tribe called Amalek, that as we were wandering in the desert for 40 years, one of the tribes who kept targeting us was Amalek. And what was distinctive about them is that they would always attack in the rear. They wouldn't take on our fighters. They would instead take on the most vulnerable, those who were sick, those who were infirm, those who were disabled, those who were kids or pregnant, or and would always attack the rear. And so there is a command repeated in the Torah that wherever you find Amalek, you have to destroy them. It's a call to genocide against Amalek is what it really is. And it's worth noting that in contemporary Israel, some of the worst voices, including some of those in power today, call the Palestinians Amalek.
Wow.
God forbid.
Yeah.
But the rabbinic tradition says that Amalek is not a foreign tribe. They are an inclination within each of us. That each of us has Amalek. Each of us has that voice that calls us to target the vulnerable and to victimize the vulnerable. And the rabbinic tradition also says that Amalek rises again in every generation.
Wow.
And I think sometimes we believe that we've defeated Amalek. That's what the moral arc of the universe bending towards justice really means. And the rabbis were much smarter than that. And they were much more experienced with the reality of humans than that. And they realized that Amalek comes back again and again and again. And it's really easy to see Amalek in the other.
Sure.
It's really easy. It's really hard to see Amalek within ourselves.
Yeah.
But Amalek is there within us too. So I guess that's how I relate to it.
Yeah. Okay, I need to sit with that for a second.
Yeah.
One thing that is interesting with that is I'm thinking right now about, as I've moved into more progressive circles and become aware of a need for additional, bias training, sensitivity training. And, I'm 53 years old. I've lived through changes in language and changes in terminology. I've had to, I'm as a college professor once said to me, Eric, you're such a good liberal. Why are you having a problem with this? And she was talking about specifically some language things we were talking about. She was talking about gender, sort of genderizing. What's the word? Language.
Yeah.
Anyway, learning about your blind spots.
Yeah.
And identifying them and trying to understand how to address them is it's a heck of an experience, and it's, I think, especially hard for people who like to pat themselves on the back as being real empathetic and broad-minded and all that stuff.
It turns out most of those anti-bias trainings don't work.
Really?
Oh, yeah. The science on them is unfortunately bleak and dim. What works is relationship.
Yeah.
Because, of course, that's what happened with gay marriage.
Yeah.
Is it turns out that anyone's kid can be born and be gay.
Yeah.
And eventually being public about that became important enough and big enough that all of a sudden people had gay kids all over and had the social support to not be as awful.
Yeah. So that's the precedent that those among us who still hope look at.
Yeah.
Is, take us back, what's it, 2025? Take us back 50 years.
4 years. 2004, Missouri passed a constitutional amendment outlawing gay marriage by 76%.
Is that right?
That's what it won at. 76%.
I was going back to the 80s and the AIDS crisis, but you don't have to go back that far.
No.
Yeah, 76%.
21 years.
Huh. You mentioned the importance of relationship and relations. And we both live in the very red House District 89 of St. Louis County. And being out during my campaign.
No, we are not, in fact, in the same. I didn't get to vote for you.
Oh, you didn't vote for me?
No.
You're why I lost.
Exactly.
I needed your vote.
Exactly.
Yeah. Where are you? I mean, I know where
I'm
your
in
house
Ladona's
is,
district.
You're in Ladona's district. It's a good district.
Yeah, right on the border.
Ladonna's great.
Yeah.
I at least, and you are represented by a Democrat, but I think it's fair to say that, you could wander, say, a half-mile radius from your house, and we walk among people who have voted for the fascism that you described. And my hope when I was out knocking on doors and meeting my neighbors was that we would find some common ground and that we would relate to one another as humans. And that did happen. And invariably at the end of a conversation that I would have at the door, somebody would say, I'm so glad you came to my door. So glad we got to talk. You seem great. But look, I'm a Republican.
Yeah.
And again, we don't need to go back to thousands of years of history, but it's hard to talk to a rabbi about this without acknowledging that tribalism is something you're well familiar with. But
it's one of the things I think we've learned. It is one of the things that liberalism was just wrong about. Is we are not rational beings who engage in a politics of ideas and rationality. We always engage tribally. Always. And we all see it, that we can accept new and challenging facts that don't challenge our tribal identity, but we will reject, all of us, you, me, Republicans, everyone, will reject challenging facts that would force us to give up our tribal identity.
Yeah.
Who your friends are determines your politics.
Well, at one point, a tribal identity, and there are, of course, layers, and I'm kind of putting aside theological identity and just thinking about...
I think theology is always downstream of politics, by the way.
Interesting.
Always. Or downstream of tribe, or downstream, whatever you want to frame it. But yeah, theology doesn't... No one is changing their life based on theology. Right. People are adopting theologies based on their identities.
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. I always appreciate talking to you because you do drop these bombs that make me. I need to stop and take stock of it for a second, let it sink in. But the bet that I placed was around, if not a literally geographical tribalism, it was that face-to-face interaction. And we're not so different. Look, we both cheer for the Cardinals, that kind of thing, could rewrite or at least blur the lines of these partisan tribes. And
partisan tribes are the primary tribes for most people these days.
Yeah. Whereas I think I believe there was a time when, you knew your next door neighbor and you were loaning them yard tools and things like that. And if their kid came under attack, you would stand up for their kid because their kid was playing with your kid and you knew each other,
This is going to sound so cynical and terrible. I'm sorry in advance. We don't have a big external enemy right now. So we don't have a tribe to define ourselves against, right? Negative partisanship, it turns out, is a lot more powerful than partisanship. And when we had the Soviets, when we had the Nazis, when we had it was a lot easier then to see your neighboring political party as not an opposing tribe, but instead a tribe that was a part of your coalition.
Yeah.
And then you're not violating the boundaries of this.
Yeah.
It's, here's a funny example. Have you ever thought about why is it that Washington, D.C. has a Holocaust Memorial Museum? Why is it that you find Holocaust memorials all over America? It's kind of weird. Didn't happen here. It's not something we did.
Yeah.
And you certainly don't find memorials to the genocides we've committed. You're going to have a real hard time finding memorials anywhere to the enslaved people whose lives were stolen and murdered and raped. And even though we're probably standing on land right now that had that happen. You don't find it about the native peoples who were here, who were genocide, right? Like, we don't. So why is it that we have Holocaust memorials everywhere? And I think the answer is that our enemy were the Nazis. And so we defined ourselves as the good guys who defeated the evil Nazis and protected the Jews. So that's a story that we get to be a hero tribally in.
Yeah.
But it's not about morality. It's just about tribal reinforcement that we have there. Now, I do want to give a shout out to the Germans. It is the only society I know of that has built memorials to their shame. All over the country. All over the country. Not that they're not having their own right-wing backlash against that right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, tribalism is the defining feature of humanity. I really believe it. We are social creatures, and the main unit we have after family is tribe.
Really striking to hear you talk about the arc of the moral universe, talk about our humans' role here, and your role within the community and just as an individual, as being, well, I'll just say, I don't hear you talking about a higher power. I don't hear you talking about there being, we can call it, how
A judge and a jury waiting for us.
A judge and a jury waiting for us, or a wind blowing us in a certain direction. Anything dictating or empowering our actions as we move along. It's got a million names, but tell me about that.
Yeah. Look, I identify most probably with a rabbi, one of the great rabbis from 1,000 years ago, who lived in what Jews call the golden age of Muslim Spain. And a guy named Maimonides. He's also called Rambam. So I'll apologize that I'm probably going to switch back and forth without meaning to here. But Maimonides took very seriously the notion of the oneness of the divine. And if God is one, then we have nothing in common with God. Because we are a multiplicity. You are a different human being than you were before you ran for election. You certainly are a different human being than you were when you were a kid. Or than you will be a decade from now, please God. Not to mention the fact that you're made up of different parts, and we could take you apart and see all the organs and the things like that, and the cells and but you change, I change, we change, which means we are not one. And so we have nothing in common with oneness. Oneness doesn't change. Oneness isn't different from one moment to the next. And so for Maimonides, saying almost anything about God is creating an idol of the mind. We essentially just become people who are creating God in our own image. Right? So you say God is loving. Maimonides' response, my response would be, well, all you're doing is taking a human concept that you think of as being good and imagining the greatest possible example of that and saying that's God. But Maimonides would say the idea that God is loving or vengeful or acts in the world or any of these is as absurd as saying that God is 15 pounds overweight. That these are human concepts that we are applying to the divine. And so the closest he gets, the closest I get to any sort of definition of God is that God is the underlying capital T truth of the universe, about which we can never know or say anything because we are within the system. That the most we can do is have relative truth. Einstein says something somewhat similar. And so if all we can have is relative truth, then the best way to understand the Creator is to understand creation. And it means that science and physics is not something that challenges God, but is something that is a holy endeavor in and of itself. But so my God doesn't act. my God doesn't intervene, my God doesn't interfere, because those are all human concepts. And so we are here because there's work we're supposed to do. Each of us, I believe it, each of our souls was sent here because there is something we were made to repair. And it turns out most of us don't realize that. And most of us live our lives as if the world was created for us instead of us for the world. And there are even Jews, in fact, who believe in a version of reincarnation, where if your soul doesn't do the work you were supposed to do, it gets sent back again and again and again. And in that sense, a soul is not your personality, it's not your essence, it's your potential. It's who you could have been and could still become.
I am so hardwired to find hope in that statement, and
Good.
yeah.
We need people.
I'm not sure that's where you are with it, but
Yeah, maybe you should become a rabbi. I've got a whole bunch of congregants who'd appreciate your perspective.
great. I'm in.
Yeah.
Yeah. This was amazing. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Oh, thank you. I'm such a fan of yours.
Oh, I really appreciate that.
You give me hope.
Let's not go that far. No, but really, and I think you know that I'm a fan of yours, and I really appreciate your willingness to have these conversations with me.
Always.
Yeah.
Always, always.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Rabbi Daniel Bogard.
Game over.